So it might be surprising if you live outside of California to know how popular AR pattern rifles are in California, but I've seen it firsthand. And if you live in California, I don't think you know a gun owner who doesn't have an AR and isn't looking to purchase their next AR or looking to build an AR. I really do think that there's something to be said about anti-gun states that the gun owners in these states seem to get really into it, even more so maybe than gun-friendly states, but that's just a theory of mine. So one AR manufacturer that's extremely popular and very high quality is POF. So I wanted to have, and they're right next door to us in a pro-gun state, so I wanted to bring Jackson on and talk about POF. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing today?
Good. So what do you think about that? How much do you know about sales in California? In other words, have you seen, is there a big influx of, are you able to track and say, hey, wow, we got a lot of our products going into California?
Yeah, the interesting thing is because of regulations dependent on the state, everywhere around the country has a little bit differing, this needs to be a certain compliant versus another. The interesting thing about California, it is one of the biggest markets for AR platforms. Now, over the years, things have changed and we've done our best to accommodate it as far as what, excuse me, what kind of restrictions there are. But as far as influx of like percentages that we do sell, it is a pretty high market. We do have a couple rep group guys out there that, Turner's is a pretty big one. But yeah, I would say it's a lot more common to be sending to these types of like restrictive states than most people would think.
I think people would be surprised by that, but I really do see, to own a gun in California, you have to be passionate about it. And I don't mean just like a casual, like, yeah, guns are cool. I mean, you almost have to be a paralegal and, a certified engineer, to own a gun out here. So the people that do own guns are super passionate about it. They get super involved. And you definitely see a lot of, well, gee, if they don't want me to do it, if the government doesn't want me to do it, then I'm going to do it even though I'm not interested. So who's the best around? And POF is frequently one of the top names that I hear from people as far as quality and what they like. And I've never heard, you don't really hear. I don't think I've ever heard a criticism of POF. POF is kind of oh yeah, they're rock solid. You definitely want to look at POF if you're looking at a new AR. So how do you guys get to that quality? Talk about the history of the company and why you guys are so high quality.
Well, it really comes down to the foundation of what started us as a company because, the true Old Testament statement that, the American dream, you start from something, you grow it, you nurture it, and hopefully you end up being successful. That really happened. And the thing that kind of separates us is that we take it personal because it is a family owned and operated company. I married into it. I'm the redheaded stepchild. But this company legitimately started in the garage of their house, and we've progressed over, coming up on 25 odd years or so. But the top priority was making something that people would appreciate for the long haul, not just your run of the mill. I buy it, it's a good price, shoot it till it stops working, put it away. We want to build something that overachieves. Also, it'll last long enough to where you can give it to future generations, and you don't have to worry about things breaking down over time. So we over-engineer everything. But as far as the quality standards goes, we do a significant amount of it in-house. So we do a lot of our manufacturing right here in the shop, and then we also 100% U.S. made. Everything has to be have a certificate, basically meaning that it was manufactured and the material itself was actually, made in the United States. And then obviously there's people here that are putting them together every single day. But in the grand scheme of things, we just try to keep it simple, make the best quality product that we can, and we stand behind it.
That's awesome. What percentage approximately do you guys sell? I'm always curious about the difference between selling complete rifles and selling uppers. I remember a time, I'm old enough to remember a time when it was almost impossible to find uppers. If you wanted a
Yeah.
gun, you had to buy the whole damn thing. And now it seems like uppers are like, it's almost like an accessory. You have 4 or 5 uppers, per lower. And, if you want a
Yeah.
long range upper or whatever, CQB upper, whatever, you can pretty much, buy whatever you want by just getting the upper. And I noticed that you sell, complete firearms, but you also, have a whole selection of uppers. What kind of percentages? What's the breakdown?
In reality, at least the way I see it, um, a lot of guys already have rifles, so they're
Hmm.
going to have their lowers. They may not want to buy another complete rifle, but they also may like what this 10-inch or 16-inch or whatever barrel length for whatever specific purpose they're doing. But they also like the certain amount of technology that one company might offer over another. So it is a pretty big. I don't want to say the margins are huge, but I will say that we do sell quite a lot of just uppers themselves. But also at the same time, we sell a lot of just lowers as well because we have what's called like a Gen 4 lower, so it's fully ambidextrous. Honestly, I think fitting in your hand, how it feels, everything is pretty user friendly. So we do see a breakup, but generally speaking, maybe 25%, if I had to put a number on it, something like that, 25%, uppers, lowers compared to like complete rifles.
It's pretty amazing, the AR design and how popular, the staying power. I mean, what are we in? We're going into like its seventh decade or whatever. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of phenomenal. I mean, there have been changes, there have been upgrades, and there have been, but really in the grand scheme of things, they're just kind of tweaks. It's not really that different from what we were using on day one, before I was born. you know, it's
Well,
kind
and
of phenomenal. What do you attribute to that?
so the interesting thing is that when Eugene Stoner came up with the original design,
Hmm.
yeah, there was a couple hiccups along the way, and I'm sure a lot of military veterans will will confirm that. But the design itself is actually really rock solid, meaning that it's relatively easy to manufacture. But really, where you start getting into the hiccups is when they started shortening all the barrel lengths down, right? And then you started having gas issues and stuff like that. So then you started trying to mitigate those things, with adjustable gas blocks and things like that. The thing that kind of separated us is that instead of just going into the adjustable gas block range, we were originally like one of the first piston gun companies to come onto the market back in the early 2000s. So we could actually regulate the amount of gas with the diameter of a piston, essentially. So like an AK or any belt fed that's worth their weight in gold, they're all piston guns. So that's kind of where we took the difference to kind of set ourselves apart. But we also make a DI gun and put a little POF twist on it. But as far as everybody else making the platform, it is a pretty tried and true platform that's for like you're saying 7 decades or so. The hard part is that how do I sell another rifle to a guy that's got 9 ARs, right? As far as like a manufacturing, scale, we have to go and kind of separate ourselves a little bit. So in the grand scheme of things, the AR-15, the AR-10, those are kind of the tried and true, the semi-auto platforms. But what we were able to do is we came out with what's called the Revolution or the CMR. It's basically a 30 cal or 308 rifle, but it's the exact same size as an AR-15.
Hmm.
308 power and an AR-15 platform. So little ways to tweak that original design that Eugene Stoner did all those years ago, but we're able to add, a battle cartridge or a hunting round into it to where it can be a lot more user friendly through different applications.
Yeah, I think, Jackson, I'm probably going to wait. Do you see? I'm sure in the comments section, I'm going to get about a half a dozen guys that are going to, it's totally different than it was. There have been a lot of changes. Okay, I recognize that. But essentially, it's basically the same thing. I mean, like I said, there have been tweaks, and we can debate over how big those tweaks have been. But it's just kind of it's amazing that he came up with this design, and it's stood the test of time, and been able to be upgraded rather than just scrap the whole thing and start over. They could say, this piece isn't working, or this part isn't working, or hey, rather than DI, let's go piston. It was kind of interesting. I was up at we were in Salt Lake City at the Gun Rights Policy Conference a few weeks ago by Second Amendment Foundation. And we went to Ogden, about 45 minutes up the road, where the John Browning Museum was. And I thought it was going to be like a sea of 1911s. And he has so many other designs that there was hardly any room to even talk about the 1911. But where I'm going with this is he tried to make a semi-automatic rifle really, really early by taking a lever action and basically putting a big old plate out in front of where the gas comes out, and then it would push the plate, pull the lever, and automatically, or semi-automatically, load a new round. And in essence, that's an AK. It was a piston-driven lever action rifle, which I thought was super, super interesting. That he picked up on that. So I know you guys do a lot of piston ARs. What was behind that decision? Because it is that's probably the biggest tweak to an AR. They're going to argue with me, Jackson. That's not the biggest. Yeah, this is the biggest. Okay, it is a significantly large change to the original design of an AR to go piston rather than DI. What was behind that decision?
So if you were to break it down into what reason why, if you just look at it mechanically, it functions fine. It does what it's intended to do. But when you start looking at high rate of fires, machine guns, cleaning, heat, all those things that you really shouldn't do to metal, which is kind of counterintuitive because that's what a firearm does. A piston gun, like most belt feds, they're going to be piston driven in one way or another. The AK, probably the most reliable rifle of all time. They all have that one thing in common, that they're a piston operated system. Essentially what you're trying to do is alleviate the amount of gas, heat, fouling, carbon, all that nasty stuff that you don't want to be in the most critical part of your gun, which is the bolt, the lockup. Obviously where the ammunition's going up feed ramps into the chamber, that kind of thing. So if you can alleviate as much stress and carbon, dirt, all that stuff off of those components, you'll extend the longevity of like springs and pins and stuff like that tend to get abused a little bit. But at the same time, you're able to redirect a lot of that heat away from it. So it helps it with longevity of those components, but it also helps you keep the gun cleaner, so you don't have to really maintain it nearly as much. But in the grand scheme of things, we kind of just went with it and ran with it. The original piston guns were somewhat loosely based off of like the FOW, the old FOW plugs, and you had like the rotating plug. And then we had a bunch of different types of pistons. So we were able to regulate not only gas pressure, so we could actually control how fast or slow the rifle cycled. And we could also control, bolt speed, all of those things without having to drill the actual port in the barrel. Because once once you drill a port, you can't ever put that material back.
Right.
Then you're stuck, with like flat wire springs, H2, H4, H5 buffers, all these kinds of things to try to restrict or limit the amount of pressure coming from the cycle of the rifle. But really, where it becomes a big thing is when guys start putting suppressors on them. So we have to be able to regulate all that back pressure coming back down the barrel. So we have the ability to, without modifying the gun in any real significant way, we can just change the position of our piston system to restrict the amount of gas, and then you can actually keep shooting it without having to do any major alterations to the rifle. So that was kind of like a couple different things that we did just to help mitigate a lot of what would be known as like overgassing issues. Cleaning the rifles, they don't get nearly as dirty, that kind of thing. And it also helps extend service life. So when we do like a lot of police and military applications, they're by the book. You want to make sure that every X amount of rounds you take it to an armory. Now we've done enough data over like the last 20 years that we can kind of see the difference between a DI maintenance program versus a piston maintenance program. And you can see how much, the life of the rifle will be extended specifically because of those reasons, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I've owned an AR since the Clinton administration.
Okay.
And it was always, direct impingement. Should I be intimidated by getting a piston? Or, you know what I mean? Am I going to have to learn a whole new thing? Is it more difficult to break down and put back together? Or what would you say to? I guess I'm a dinosaur at this point, Jack, or at least I'm getting there. But what would you say to
A DI
dinosaur like,
truther?
yeah, a DI dinosaur like myself, and I want to go piston, but I'm intimidated. How do you make me feel better about it?
So the biggest thing, obviously I'm going to be a little biased to our own product. We made it really simple. Like I was kind of saying earlier, keep it simple, stupid. That's that's the way I live my life. You don't need to do any extra things to have the same outcome, right? So essentially our piston system is 3 pieces. You have a piston, an op rod, and a plug. Okay, so those you can take them in and out with a click of a button, wipe them down. You don't need to put any oil or cleaner in there every now and then, but it just drops back in and clicks in place. Everything has notches, so it'll tell you what position you're in. We have great videos on YouTube that kind of explains all that. But the biggest difference is that you're able to take out those parts, maintenance them, put them back in. And in reality, I mean, I think you guys saw the Iraqi veteran 888 video.
Yeah, he like really beat it up, right? He took one of your pride. He took an AR and he like ran something like 1 billion rounds through it. Or
I think it was like 2,600 rounds in like a little under like 23 minutes, which is pretty good.
Talk a little bit about that. Be more accurate than I just was. Tell people.
So it kind of falls into your previous question because it's really hard to explain like how heat dissipation works, how all that stuff works in comparison to like a DI platform where you have literally gas and all carbon and everything cycling back into the bolt carrier group, and that's what's cycling the gun, right? All we're doing is transferring the energy of the gas onto a solid component, and then that pushes the carrier and does the cycle. In that video, they also had like a thermal in the top right corner. They had like a thermal camera going on the rifle, so you can see the hot spots. So you have the gas block, the barrel, and then you have the barrel or heat sink barrel nut, and then like you can kind of see the bolt going. If you look at them, you can see the temperature range change based on location away from the gas block. You can see that it goes really hot to slightly cooler all the way down to cool. That's the benefit of a piston gun. Now, granted, most guys aren't going to be out there shooting machine guns like that.
Yeah.
But my case still stands.
It's good to know. It's good to know you can.
It's good to know you can. But the philosophy is that you're keeping all that heat away from the most critical part of your gun. It's keeping everything a lot cleaner. There's nothing wrong with the DI platform. It's just a little bit more maintenance, and it gets a little bit more dirty, especially depending on the type of ammo you're running. But in general, the piston guns are a little bit easier to maintain. They don't get nearly as hot in your chamber. The upper, the carrier, all that stuff stays a little bit cleaner. And in reality, it's just a little bit easier to maintain. And you're also going to have the benefit of none of that gas coming down into your chamber on your bolt and all that. That's essentially going to be the 2 main differences between the two. But we also offer a DI on just about every platform as well, and people like them. It is more of a whatever your taste is or whatever your opinion of the matter is.
And as far as maintaining, I think you guys are SEAL1 folks too, aren't you? Like,
yes, sir.
Fans of SEAL1. You guys use SEAL1, right?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say probably since 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. Nice. Actually, I found the guy's name out. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years. Mike Debonetto. He used to be a sales rep for them, and he came in one day. He was a friend of my father-in-law's. And I mean, we buy the big tubs. I mean, huge tubs of them, and we probably go through about 1 a month or so.
Yeah.
And I like it because they have a bunch of different versions. They have like an aerosol can. They have like the paste in the tubs, and they also have like a more, I guess you call it like a viscous liquid version.
Yeah.
What we do for all of our new platforms, everything when we're assembling them, they'll get lubed up, the charging handle carrier, that kind of thing before the initial test fire. And then we shoot them, and then they come out and they get their final assembly cleaned and maintenance and all that. The handguards installed. They'll get wiped down, cleaned, put the new application of the SEAL1 on there because it does help protect it. Whenever we ship guns out to distribution, We don't know if it's going to be there for a week. We don't know if it's going to be there for 6 months, that kind of thing. And depending on what part of the country you are that you're in, you might have humidity issues that we don't have in Arizona. But it helps protect it and maintain it. It also keeps all the carbon and stuff from sticking. Once you put it on there, it's a pretty good base layer. Kind of slather it on there. Whenever you go to clean it, a little bit of that stays on there. I've noticed that it's been phenomenal for us whenever we do demo days, and we're shooting 5,000-10,000 rounds through a bunch of different guns. I'm able just to take a terry cloth, wipe it up, put a new little bit on there, and you're back up and running again.
It's hard to explain. I know what you're talking about as far as it leaves. I'm hesitant to say it leaves a film on there because
that's kind of a naughty word.
Yeah, because it's not a film and it's not greasy and it's not even oily. It just kind of has this protective like layer.
It's almost like a casing in a weird way.
It is, yeah, but it's not greasy. Yeah, here's the thing, Jackson. I am enormously horrible at do-it-yourself anything, and I'm extremely lazy when it comes to cleaning guns, and I overdo everything. So before, I would take hoppies, and I would, just like soak it in hoppies, and then I'd, have to get all the hoppies off, and then I'd, put way too much oil on it, and I'd sit there. I never, ever got it right. I was really bad at cleaning my gun. And SEAL1, this is what I do, and I've told Dwight from SEAL1 about this, and he rolls his eyes, but I'm telling you, this works. I take like my Glock, just this weekend, I took my Glock, and I got the gel, not the paste and not the aerosol, but that it's almost like toothpaste,
Yeah.
The SEAL1 gel for I forget exactly what they call it, and I put it all over inside my Glock, and kind of, wiped it down. It was all, covered in gook. And then I take the kitchen sink, turn it on extremely hot water, and then I run the whole gun underneath, and it just kind of takes all that gunk and all that SEAL1 away, and I'm left with a totally clean Glock. And I dry it off, and boom, and you get that like I said, that protective coating on it, and you don't have to lube it because it's kind of it does that lubricating, and protecting, for you, and it works perfectly. It's so easy for someone like me who has no idea what they're doing.
I can't remember exactly what the demonstration was, but there's been plenty of gun cleaning guys or lubricants, and of course they approach us at all the trade shows. Yeah, you're like, hey, try this, you try that. And I've tried just about all of them. And in reality, depending on what kind of application you're going to use it on, how hard you're going to use it, how often you're going to shoot it, it's the average guy might not see any real big issue until you get on like the coastlines. You said you're in California, so Florida, right, the Virginias, all these places where the humidity really becomes a huge factor. I don't have to deal with it because I'm in Arizona, it's super dry. But I have seen guys that use traditional cleaning products, hoppies or whatever their CLPs. A lot of guys come from the military, so that's the tried and true. They put it on there, and they're still getting surface rust on all like the steel components and things like that. With the SEAL1, I've noticed that you just put it on there, wipe everything down. It leaves the little bit of film. You don't really have to worry about it. The other thing that I've noticed is that when you start talking about handguns, stuff like that, a lot of guys are putting them into like ultrasonic cleaners and things like that. I haven't really, even as a manufacturer, and we have a lot of guns that we come in here and do demos with, I don't even have an ultrasonic cleaner because we pre-lube everything with the SEAL1 while we're out at shows, demos, all that stuff. They just stay relatively clean because whatever secret sauce they got in there, it has worked out really, really well for us in my experience. And then they have a bunch of different, products for you that kind of make it pretty simple. Bore gels, lubricant. They have the CLP Plus, which is like the paste, which is honestly my kind of my favorite one. They also have like an aerosol version. Whatever you need, really, I just go by the one finger method. So if you're using the paste, scoop it with your finger, cover everything, shoot it. When you're done, take a little cloth, wipe it all down. They have some more like in-depth cleaning stuff, but in general, it's already protected. You don't have to worry about any corrosion or anything like that. Throw a little bit more on if you're throwing it in the safe. Any steel components, put a little dab of that on there, and you're good to go.
And boom, you're good to go. I agree. Let's talk about caliber. I've seen a lot of calibers come and go. It felt like 300 blackout was. I kept going back and forth. I
thought it was going to be a flash in the pan.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a flash in the pan. Then I'm like, oh, I think it's going to stay. And then I was like, nah, it's a flash in the pan. No, I think it's going to stay. It seems to be it seems to have stayed. It seems to be a pretty rock solid caliber. Not as popular as 5.56, but that's understandable. So, but I don't know. Is it? What's your opinion on 300 blackout? I noticed you have some 300 blackout products. So, talk a little bit about 300 blackout.
So 300 blackout is what everybody thought would be the 30 caliber and the 5.56 platform or the AR-15 platform, right? That was the kind of the whole idea. They wanted the larger bullet, smaller platform. Now, granted, we went around it the opposite way and just made a 308 that's the same size, but we do offer the 300 blackout, right? And it has its purpose. It's just like any tool, right? You have a bandsaw, table saw, hammers, whatever. They all have a purpose. It just really depends on what your purpose is, right? So you're not going to be a long range, 800 to 1,000 yard guy with 300 blackout. It wasn't designed for that. A lot of what we would call home defense rounds. I mean, subsonic guys. I don't know. I'm not entirely positive on the suppressor laws in California, but out here, it's pretty prevalent. So little short. SBRs with a can on it for home defense stuff. A lot of like the law enforcement guys are kind of going that way too. They're very traditional with their 5.56, like their patrol rifles, but like a lot of their SWAT team guys are even going back to like 9mm. It's very interesting because there are trends where you'll see like it used to be the 6.8 that was a flash in the pan. Then you had like the 224 Valkyrie. Now you're getting into like the 6 arc. So they're kind of what I would call like a novelty round. So guys are finding a purpose for the caliber, whereas the 300 blackout kind of came in for that reason. You wanted what's called 200 yard gun, 250 yard rifle, but you, depending on the platform, the type of ammunition you're running, it has a multitude of purposes. I know guys are doing a lot of hog hunting out in Texas with 300 blackout short guns. They're a lot of times they're hunting out of side by sides out there because it's private land. But I do like the caliber. I wasn't a big fan of it before just because you do run the risk of chambering a 300 blackout in a 5.56 gun because the head spaces are very, very close. And I've had a number of them come back to me for repair. I don't know what happened. My gun blew up. But they are very similar. And that's the only, I would say the only thing that concerns me a little bit about it is that, negligence or getting comfortable with it. Kind of get into those little scenarios. But as far as the platform goes, it's a pretty sweet little round. I wouldn't say it's I don't think it would overtake the 5.56 if I had to put a bet on it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not anymore. Like maybe a few years ago, some folks would try to make that case, but it definitely, it seems like it's here to stay, but it's not going to, I don't think it's going to overtake 5.56. But I actually have a 5.56 upper. But then I went and got a 458 SOCOM upper.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason I got a 458 SOCOM upper is because one day, Jackson, I was looking at my magazines for my AR, and I realized I've been wrong all these years. I thought I had 30-round 5.56 mags, but it turns out I have 10-round 458 SOCOM mags. So I was totally wrong. And once I made that realization how wrong I was about my magazines here in California, I had to go out and buy a 458 upper. So I like it. It's kind of neat. It's it's a novelty round, like you said.
Well, that's the word right there, novelty round. Now, I mean, a lot of guys might be up in arms about it because I understand the applications and purposes of it. I mean, it really is just going to be dependent on like what you want to do. Realistically speaking, we've done a few of them. We've done like a couple little small runs of them. It's just not as popular as we thought it would be. So we kind of, obviously we have to appeal to the public and we're trying to, sell rifles that people want. But at the same time, I get it. Like, just like, some of our other platforms that we've done, there's been guys that say, hey, why don't you make it in this caliber? Or, 6.8 blackout or whatever these, new calibers that are coming out. And it's like, it's really hard because I understand it's the hot new thing, but at the same time is how many guys are actually going to go and buy it. That's
Yeah.
the balancing act that we have to do. Where as far as the 300 blackout, if you don't sell 300 blackout, you're not going to be doing too good in business, because a lot of guys do want it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like you said, it's the right tool for the right job. A 458 SOCOM is if there's a burglar hiding behind a refrigerator in your neighbor's house, you're going to need a 458 SOCOM, right? I mean, that's really what the tool is. So, but I don't know. It's just fun, and honestly, I did it for the magazines. That's really the real reason. Hey, I wanted to ask you. So, you guys do a really good job at messaging. I think that people can go on your website and see, what you've written about your history and who you are, and I think people can tell your values and tell what you do and why you do it, and you do a really good job. And like you said, you guys are a family-owned business. Recently, we've seen big companies like SIG mess up on their messaging with their P320s problems, and then Glock with replacing their entire product line. I think that they messed up with their messaging. I don't know. What do you as a company, like, how do you approach messaging when you're in the firearms industry? You know what I mean? In the United States, you have customers in all 50 states. It's so different. There are so many people that are so plugged into manufacturing. It's not like it's not even like automobiles. People are, they might be a Chevy or a Ford guy, but man, people are more invested in, gun manufacturers than I think any other type of manufacturer. I mean, it's like a part of their identity. They take it very seriously. So how do you guys approach your messaging, and how do you know you're doing it right?
Well, that it is tough, because I can't speak for SIG and I can't speak for Glock. They got their own situations going on, for whatever, for better or worse. I don't know. I do know, enough guys in this industry, and obviously other manufacturers. We all go to the same shows, so you do make friendships with a lot of those guys. The thing that, I would say that kind of separates us is kind of like what you were saying. It is a family owned and operated thing. So my father-in-law started this many, many years ago, and all of the kids started getting on board. And then, in fact, like, I'm pretty sure my wife reached out to you, and that's the one who set it up. She's actually does all of our purchasing. We have Uncle John in shipping, Tracy. We're actually a female-owned company now, so she was always there. But once Frank passed, she stepped into those shoes. My brother-in-law Cody, he does he's our vice president, kind of like operations manager, and then I do all the production control in the back. The hardest part is, as far as messaging is we want to represent something that actually we feel good about. And what I mean by that is, like, you can even see this little photo behind me. It's actually a big, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's been one of our tried and true logos for many, many years. History was a big part of our foundation. My father-in-law was really, really obsessed with American history, believes in the American dream and what that flag stands for and what those people sacrifice. So for us, as far as doing the manufacturing side, we want to make a product that we stand behind. Now, well, the hard part is when you get into marketing, the internet's a tough place, because a lot of the social media stuff, you can't post certain things, you can't say certain words. I don't want to say shadow banned, but it is hard for us to market because we can't do, commercials and stuff like that. But for us, it's value. We make a really, really good, high-end product. We stand behind it, and we want people to recognize that. Now, as far as like setting ourselves apart, it is a tough gig, just because we don't necessarily have the largest marketing budget. But with what we got, I think people really grab a hold of it, because if you call, you'll get myself or another person on the on the other end of the phone, someone in the building that can actually give you 2 cents of what's going on with your rifle. If you're having an issue or anything like that, we have actually pretty good customer support. Or if you want to call and say, hey, I'm trying to find a rifle, I can't find one near us, we'll place a rifle and we'll drop ship it to a dealer for you, or we'll find one at distribution. It's just really just making sure that we as people would treat our customers the same way that we would want to be treated. And it gets hard the larger the company, gets. But when you start talking about, companies in manufacturing that have, 300 to 500 employees, it's kind of hard to make that a true family atmosphere, as far as a company goes. But for us, it's really just, what our core beliefs are. We want to represent that every single day. And that sounds great, as speaking it, but to be able to be a part of it every day and participate in seeing how, obviously opportunities like this to talk to you guys come up just by word of mouth. Somebody knows somebody, they had a good experience with us. You can't put a dollar value on, word of mouth and good experiences, or, hey, I saw this video, or this guy went on a hunt with me, or I was out at this demo event. I really like this platform. And then, you meet that guy down the road and they really like the product. So, it's tough to compete, but at the end of the day is that we stand firm in our beliefs that we're trying to do the best we can for the customer, but at the same time to do the best we can as far as making, in my opinion, some of the best rifles on the market.
Well, I think a lot of people's opinion, some of the best rifles on the market, and I congratulate you guys for it. Yeah, I think that picture is, I think the first time I saw that picture was at an NRA annual meeting, and it really does stick out. And I think it's definitely, it's an example of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that picture says a lot about you guys. It says a lot about what you stand for. Without, writing a single word. So I think you guys nailed it. You guys did a great job. So, well, Jackson, awesome, man. I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate everything that you guys do. Please tell everybody that we love what POF is doing, and don't forget us, over here behind enemy lines in California. So, but we absolutely love what you do. Anything else? What else would you like? Anything else you want our listeners to definitely know about POF?
If not for nothing, man, if you're ever at a show, you see one of us, don't hesitate to come up and talk to us. If you have any questions, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have nothing but love and joy talking to people, spreading the word. If you're ever out in Phoenix, you ever come out this way, brother, you come out and see me. I'll give you a whole tour of the factory. You can kind of see how everything's done here. I'll give you myself will personally do it for you.
That'd be cool, man. I might take you up on that. A buddy of mine just moved. Well, I guess he's been out there a few years now, and I keep telling him I'm going to come visit him, and I think we're going to make that happen. So I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to come out and take a tour of the factory. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anytime, anything you need, you ever want to chat again, just let me know. Give me a holler, okay?
Cool. Thanks, Jackson. Thanks for talking to us.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media, and check out our website at gunownersradio.com.